We really haven't talked about Russia much at all this year in terms of being involved in any kind of European or even Asian affairs. That's because for a long time they were actually kind of fighting with each other and fighting with the Mongols to kind of create or carve out an empire for themselves. So it's not until really the 1500s, about 1533 actually, when Ivan IV, who was also known as Ivan the Terrible, took over the throne at 3 years old. While he was 3 years old, obviously there was a lot of people that tried to influence him as a child. Since he had absolute power, there was a lot of actually fighting amongst the Boers, who are the landed nobles or the landed elite of Russia. And they kind of fight over amongst themselves, trying to persuade Ivan to decide with them one way or another. By the time he was 16, he actually kind of threw off the influence of all these different Boers and named himself Tsar, which means Caesar in Russian. And he eventually married Anastasia of the Romanovs, the Romanovs were an old boyar family that had a lot of power at that time. So Ivan actually, for about 15 years, ruled really well. His good period, he won a lot of victories and added a lot of land to his country. But eventually Anastasia dies, and this leads to Ivan's bad period, and this is why he was known as Ivan the Terrible. He created a secret police that rode around with black suits on and rode black horses, and they would chase down any Boers that he thought had possibly played a role in poisoning his wife, and would kill them as well as all the peasants that were living on their land. So he used these secret police to really terrorize other people. And then at one of the worst parts of his rule, he actually killed his oldest son, who was the most fit to rule Russia. And so this led to the time of troubles. After Ivan IV passed away, he left his second son, who was pretty feeble, both in mind and in body. And so boyars went through a big power struggle for quite some time. And it lasted until about 1613, when finally the Romanovs, once again from Anastasia's family, took back over and put Peter into power. And so Peter is the one who's going to really modernize Russia and bring it forward into Europe as well as become kind of a power. At the time, Russia is kind of seen as backwards compared to Europe. It's still a land of noble landed aristocrats and those who serve them, the serfs. And most of Western Europe at this time had already abolished serfdom and peasantry and things like that. So this economic system was kind of unique to Russia at the time. So Peter realizes that something has to change in Russia, or else they're going to kind of stay in this backward state for a long time and not develop the way they should in terms of Western Europe. So what Peter does is he actually, when he comes to power, and at that age, I think it was 24, he goes to Europe for an entire year and visits some of the great capitals there and brings back a lot of different ideas. And he's really interested in seas and the ships and really tries to bring in modern technology. So one of the ways that he controlled the Russians is that he brought the Russian Orthodox Church under his control. He also reduced the power of a lot of the landowners, the Boers, that had caused a lot of trouble across Russia for a long time. He also modernized the army by bringing in Western European trainers for the army and to train them with Western European weapons and tactics. In addition, he introduced potatoes to the country, which is going to become a staple for a long time, still is to this day. He started Russia's first newspaper. He raised women's status. He made the Boers get rid of their old costumes or clothes and shave and become more westernized. And he also advanced education in a big way. And he believed that it was a very, very important aspect of bringing Russia into the modern era. In addition to westernizing, Peter also realized that he needed a warm water port because for a long time the northern part of Russia was the only access to the ocean that they had. So he wanted to create something on the Baltic Sea where he could access the ocean and could trade with a lot of Western Europe. So he actually fights with Sweden for quite some time. It's about a 20-year war, and he finally wins some land over there. It's a swampy, kind of nasty land, but he forces peasants or serfs to come and work there during the summer and between, the numbers are sketchy, but between 25,000 and 100,000 serfs died in the process of creating St. Petersburg. Once it's created, he forces a lot of the nobles to move there from Moscow, and so Peter is become successful in westernizing Russia, and this is one of the reasons he's known as Peter the Great.